Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Nageen Kommu, who is the founder of Digitap.AI, which provides high-tech advanced AI and ML solutions to new age internet-driven startups and businesses. Hi Nageen, welcome to ELI.
Hi, Priyaranjan. Thanks for having me.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Sure, thanks. Thanks for that. So, as you mentioned, my name is Nageen Kommu. I've been born, brought up in a Tier 2 city called Vijayawada in Andhra Pradesh. Right. So, I've done my schooling over there, and I studied there until my plus two, which we usually call it as a 12th. Right.
Yeah.
Post my schooling over there, I went to do my engineering in REC, which is now the National Institute of Technology in Karnataka, which is in Surat.
Okay.
It's a long way from home, actually on the opposite sides of India, right? Then did engineering, did computer science there for about 4 years. Then got a job in Bangalore with a company called Lucent, which then became Alcatel Lucent and then was taken over by Nokia. So there I worked there for about 5 years as a software engineer, predominantly working in the telecom sector.
Okay.
So Lucent was, as a company, was known for building these telecom networks. And initially, I was working in the 3G, developing 3G networks, and then eventually was also developing 4G networks. And this was way back in 2007, 2008. Right. So I worked there from 2004 to 2009, and then like everyone else, decided to do my MBA. So I did my MBA in 2009, graduated in 2011, and I did it in IIM Ahmedabad, the 2-year course. Post that, I mean, when I was doing my MBA, I had the exposure of various functionalities within an organization. Like, so we studied a lot about marketing, finance, strategy, general management, HR. And what I strongly believed during those 2 years was that I was more of a generalist rather than a specialist, right? So, which then made me to pursue a career in consulting. And consulting is a career where you get to actually see all different functionalities of an organization, and you also get to advise people on how to run their own business across these various functions, right? So, one day you might be working on a financial project, and the second day you might be working on a marketing. One day you might be working on a cost reduction project versus another day you might be working with the business growth people on revenue enhancement projects. Right? So that sort of exposure that I might be getting into the actual running of a business was something that really fascinated me, and I pursued my career in consulting post that. So I worked with Ernst & Young in their management consulting division for about 6 years. And then I quit the company when I was a manager over there. So joined as a consultant, got promoted to a senior consultant, and then as a manager.
Okay.
During that particular stint, again, owing to my telecom background in Alcatel Lucent, I was predominantly working in the TMT vertical, which is telecom, media, and technology vertical. And I was predominantly working with all CXO level executives in the telecom industry, advising them on revenue growth, cost reduction, product enhancements, or product growth, and various aspects of things. And I had also worked not only with telecom companies in India, but I had stints in US, Southeast Asia, Asia Pacific, like Australia, New Zealand, and Middle East as well. Okay. So this was in 2017 when, I mean, for 6 years of my work experience in consulting, when I decided to become an entrepreneur and took the plunge into entrepreneurship. Right? And the major
just I would like to stop you here. Can you tell us why entrepreneurship happened? What triggered that transition?
Right. So it's actually very I mean it's a strange thing to happen, right? Because up until about 2015, um, I predominantly had an intuition that I'm not fit for entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
See, uh, in order to be successful as an entrepreneur, right? I mean, you need to have two things. One is a clear vision and dream to pursue that vision, and the second thing is perseverance, right?
Mm,
That is, those are the two tenets that I never thought or at least the vision part and the dream to chase that vision is something that I really had. That's fine, but I never thought that I had the perseverance to go after that goal with the patience that is needed to be a successful entrepreneur.
mm,
Before jumping into something like an entrepreneurship, I always thought that you need to know yourself better, right? Because if you are not fit for entrepreneurship, then you might be doing something that you don't like, and you are also not getting anything out of
mm.
it, right? Which is a double whammy
Yeah,
scenario.
right.
Most people have jobs. They keep doing those jobs that they might not like, but at least they are getting something back from it to keep them good, right?
Mm, mm,
It could be monetary, it could be some sort of a recognition or a fame, something of that nature, right? But entrepreneurship is something that you really need to be excited about and kicked about. It could be any idea, right? It
mm,
really doesn't matter how big the idea is. You need to believe in that particular idea, right? Because you would be sacrificing a lot, and if you don't, then your day-to-day business becomes hell.
mm,
So I never thought as a personality, I was fit for entrepreneurship or I had that perseverance to be an entrepreneur. Right. However, all that changed when I met my friend from Ahmedabad, like nearly after 5 years,
okay.
and out of some chance, we were having certain conversations, and we out of those conversations, an idea was born wherein I had the opportunity to combine two of the passionate things in my life to start an idea and then start a company around that. Right? I mean,
Mm,
I am extremely passionate about technology, as you could see throughout my career. Right? So I have worked for 5 years as a computer engineer, as a software developer, and even in those 6 years, I was predominantly working with telecom and IT companies,
mm,
engaging with those firms, right? So, and the second passion I have is sports. So I follow a lot of sports.
okay.
So I'm an ardent supporter of Manchester United, Roger Federer in tennis, Ferrari in Formula One, and of course, like every other Indian, I'm a huge fan of Indian cricket team.
Right.
So when we were having those conversations, so we had an idea of doing something combining both, right? Which is technology and sports, where and
Okay.
which is when out of that strong urge to do something to follow my passion is
Mm,
where I started the entrepreneurial journey, right?
okay.
Because as I mentioned, unless and until you are kicked about the idea, it's very difficult for anyone who's having a luxurious job as a consultant in UI, traveling around the world, to quit that and
Mm,
then start something where we weren't having even a single penny of salary for a couple of years when we were doing
right.
that, right? So you can imagine the hardships that we were into, but those were I could always say that those were the best years of my life, right? In terms of the fun that we had building the product and whatever success we could have with that particular product, right? I mean, sharing that success with people that are my friends, right?
Mm,
So that's the main reason why I got into entrepreneurship.
okay.
So as I told you, so we were building. So as part of my first venture, we were building a platform where we were trying to enhance the experience, online experience of a sportsman.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So Like we were planning to combine something like a Facebook and a Sportskeeda or ESPN and a Crickbus and a Dream 11 into one particular platform,
Okay.
but personalize that particular experience of a fan based on what he prefers.
Mm.
So as a fan, right? So people would prefer different things. I, as a fan, would prefer lot more written, analytical based written articles, right?
Okay.
Some other person as a fan might prefer engaging with others on social media.
Mm.
Some fans might prefer just watching videos on in a loop repeatedly again and again. Right?
Right.
Some people are there just for the kick of winning and losing along with the team, right?
Mm.
Which is why they play the fantasy game, right?
Right.
So we wanted to provide all these experiences on one platform, but personalize that experience based on what kind of a fan he is, right?
Okay.
Which is where we were using AI/ML technologies to understand the fan better based on what historically what he has been doing on the platform, and then
Mm.
personalize that experience for him.
Okay.
And so we were actually doing combining both, right? So tech
Mm.
and sports. So we did that for a couple of years from 2017 to 2019.
Mm.
It did not have the ramp up that we anticipated.
Okay.
And of course, we were pre-revenue. So we raised the initial round of funding for that, but we ran out of money. And then in 2019, I had to take a decision in terms of, what should I do now?
Okay.
Which is when, so we built a strong knit team on
Mm.
AI on the tech side, right? So
Okay.
we were then exploring opportunities or use cases in the financial world, wherein we can
Mm.
build something using the core skill sets of the team that we have,
Mm.
which is when we founded Digitap, and
Okay.
where our core focus here is basically from a product point of view is to build. We are a B2B firm, right? So we work with clients in the BFSI space. So most of the clients of ours are NBFCs or banks or fintechs, right?
Okay.
The product that we sell them are in two verticals. So one is we provide complete customer onboarding suite, uh,
Mm.
which is a digital customer onboarding suite,
Mm-hmm.
using your KYCs or video KYCs or OCR technologies,
Okay.
which extract information from
Mm-hmm.
the images of a PAN cards or Aadhaar cards being submitted,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then doing certain fraud detection, identity detection solutions to these firms, right?
Okay.
And the second vertical that we have built is more on AI/ML sort of space, wherein whenever these clients are onboarding individual customers,
Mm.
we look at a certain amount of data coming in from these customers, which are non-bureau data,
Mm.
right? Either based on data based on their bank statements or
Yeah.
their device
Yeah.
data,
Like
data
the
coming from their
messages
device,
coming to their
financial
mobile.
messages, correct. Then their social media profiles, then data coming from their telecom networks, data coming from their location uh, where they are staying, right? So we aggregate information coming in from all these various data sources for these
Mm-hmm.
customers, and then we provide a credit profile to
Okay.
these clients, saying if this customer is having this much activity in his social media profiles and staying in this particular location and having this much salary based on our reading of the financial SMSs and bank statements,
Mm.
the propensity for him to pay this much amount of loan, pay back this much amount of loan is say X, right?
Mm.
Or his credit score is XXX,
Okay.
right? So these are the solutions which are a little more complicated solutions, wherein we provide these scoring models to our clients. That is where we are now seeing a lot of traction coming in, especially in the post-pandemic world.
Mm. Okay. So one question around it, like you mentioned, uh, uh, creating a credit profile out of the different data points we have. So India is a very, I think the recent growth in the fintech that happened, the reason behind it is uh, India is not well penetrated in terms of credit. So there is a lot of credit hunger and a lot of opportunity for fintech companies. And
Right.
most of the people right now in the market, most of the customers, they don't have a strong credit history. So
Right.
they don't have any credit history at all. So
Absolutely.
can you tell us where do you see this fintech industry or the overall BFSI industry going in next 5 years time?
See, definitely, there is a lot of scope for. So I think if you look at the fintech industry in general, right, I think they have provided or they have been focusing a lot on the top 100 million out of the 1.3 billion uh, customer base that we have, right?
Hmm.
And this 100 million is predominantly in your metros or in tier, at the max a tier two cities, right?
Yeah.
Now, it's easy to provide solutions to these people because you have a lot of data available about these people, right?
Hmm.
But as you rightly pointed out, there is a huge, like close to, in my opinion, 400 to 500 million customer base that is sitting out there in tier three, tier four cities,
Yeah.
which is ripe for penetration, right?
Exactly.
Now, and you are absolutely right that most of these customers do not even have a credit history, right?
Hmm.
Just to elaborate on that, see, the credit history actually gets built up when you take some credit,
Hmm.
right? Either it can be through a credit card or it can be through a loan, right? Now, if you don't have any of those, it becomes that much more difficult for people or banks or NBFCs to know how to, how to judge you in terms of how to rank you, right?
Hmm.
In terms of whether you will be able to repay the loans that they will give you.
Hmm.
Now, so predominantly from a credit and underwriting point of view, most of the fintechs that are coming up right now and or who have been in the market for the last 2 to 3 years are focusing on that particular segment,
Okay.
which is predominantly providing credit to these segments where either they don't have a credit history or they had a credit history but based on very minimal data and their credit history became bad, right?
Okay.
Um, So the benchmark for doing a credit underwriting is the bureau scores, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But in our experience, what we have seen is that if you just provide credit based on the bureau score, right, you'd
Hmm.
be targeting customers only who are above 750 score, right?
Exactly.
And every bank, every NBFC is targeting the same set of customers.
Absolutely.
Where we enable these NBFCs and banks is basically we show them a totally new customer segment altogether, which is
Hmm.
below 730, right?
Okay.
And you will be surprised to know that in some cases, people with scores of 630 to 680 have better payment behaviors than people with scores between 680 to 730,
Hmm.
right? Sometimes they are even better than people beyond 750,
Right.
right? So, but how do they know that they can trust these customers between 630 to 680, right? I mean, if you just take a cutoff from based on a bureau score, you'd never be serving these customers, right? Which is where we help them in terms of, hey, there could have been some problem in the past because of which his score was say 630, but
Hmm.
right now, if you in the last 6 months, if you look at the data, he has been a really good customer, and you can actually start with a small ticket loan for this customer and then take it beyond that, right? So, in
Okay.
my opinion, the use of alternate data or is going to be key in terms of especially on the credit side of things,
Hmm.
and and we can now see that the NBFCs and the banks and the fintechs are actually growing more and more hungry for data, right?
Hmm.
See, the other challenge that these guys will also have to address is that there is a difference in serving 500 million versus 100 million, right?
Hmm.
You need to be 5 times faster. You need to be 5 times agile. You need to be 5 times more. Uh, the processing times need to be that much more less, right?
Hmm.
Now, how do you process information that is 5 times more than what you were doing traditionally, right? You cannot have the same manual systems in place. You cannot have the same manual guy sitting there and then trying to say, okay, can I give him a loan or not,
Right.
right? Because the scale is 5 times more, or in some
Yeah.
cases 10 times more, right? You need to have automated systems in place, which is where I think the entire fintech industry will move towards, is automation, alternate database underwriting.
Yeah, and which is where you operate as a product
Correct.
company. So you spoke about the product, and you also spoke about the problem statement as well. Can you also tell us a little bit on the business side of it? How do you, as a venture, make money? Who pays you? What is the average ticket size? And also a little bit on how did you penetrate this market? How did you, go to market? What were the initial set up customers? How did you find them?
So, in terms of the business, most of the solutions that we do provide, right, are API based solutions. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, when I say API based, so there is a one interaction that happens. Say, if you want, so before even that, right? So let me start by saying that our customers are B2B customers. Right? We work with a lot of these fintech companies
Mm-hmm.
which have the need for these digital customer onboarding solutions and as well as alternate data
Yeah.
underwriting solutions.
Mm.
Now, so we have a solution set of about close to 20 solutions,
Okay.
right? Um, 10 solutions on customer onboarding and 10 solutions on alternate data underwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, each of these solutions we provide individually as a modular solution to the banks, right?
Okay.
So, if the banks or NBFCs are interested in taking, say, an OCR of PAN from us,
Mm-hmm.
and the other solution could be bank statement analysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, we've intentionally made it modular in nature because we see that not all clients want to take all the solutions from one particular vendor,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we had to go down the path of being modular in nature.
Okay.
We already had a lot of competition for these solutions when we entered into the market,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you could actually say that we might have been a third or a fourth player in some of these solutions when we
Right.
entered into the market, right?
Yeah.
So it was imperative for us to, and by the time we entered into the market, the business models and everything had been already set by the
Mm.
players that were already in the market, right?
Right.
So people were paying for per customer per solution, right?
Mm.
So, for example, if Priya Ranjan wants to go to a bank and open a bank account, if he's giving his PAN card, so the OCR for a PAN card for one particular customer is of this price.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it is on a per customer per solution basis, right? So if I read the bank statement and analyze the bank statement of one customer, the charge is this,
Mm.
right? And so on and so forth. So if there are about 100 customers bank statements that we are reading for a client, then the revenue from that particular client for that solution will be 100 into whatever is the charge for reading of one particular bank statement, right?
Mm.
So that is pretty much the business model. And the only tweaking that you could do in the business model or in the pricing here is that you could lower your prices. That's about it, right? So there
Okay.
isn't much of an innovation. The only other innovation in the business model that you could think of is you could offer these solutions as a package,
Mm.
right? Hey, why don't we provide you solutions of bank statement analyzer or a financial data, device data analyzer, or a location-based analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And for all these three solutions, we will then give you a combined score, and you can underwrite the customer based on that particular score. And per underwriting, or even there, the volume, I mean, the charge could be higher, but it is still a charge based on per use,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
right? Now, we being not like the first entrant into this particular market, especially on the digital onboarding solutions,
Mm.
we had to follow the procedures and norms that are already laid out in the market.
Okay.
Uh, initially we thought that pricing could be a differentiator, and that's where we wanted to offer the differentiation,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we figured out that pricing doesn't matter. um,
Yeah.
what matters is, one, your product has to be on par with whatever they are currently using or whatever they want to use, right? So from a quality and accuracy point of view, you will have to be on par, which we are already.
Mm-hmm.
Over and above that, what we figured out is the gap that is there, that we could exploit, and we did that, is the support that these clients get from their existing vendors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is where we differentiated ourselves. Now the support could be not just when there is a problem that is happening, and how proactively the vendor is addressing that particular problem. It could also be like, if there are some customizations that this client needs, right? Now, how proactively is the vendor approaching the client and then making those customizations to make the life of the end customer or the customer of the client better,
Mm-hmm.
right? When I say clients, there are B2B customers, right? Like the banks and NBFCs.
Yeah.
So that, through that particular support model, is where we have been able to onboard some of the initial clients, and they are like big clients like Credit B, Navi Technologies, and all those whom we've been able to
Mm.
get on board.
Okay. Uh, can you tell us what are the different challenges that you have faced along the way while building and growing this venture, and also tell us about the pivot that you did from your first venture to second venture. So just tell us about it. What happened? What are the different transitions you saw, and how did you overcome it?
So I'll take up the second question first. In
Yeah.
terms of the pivot or the transition that you did, right? So I think I've touched upon this in the previous, sometime previously as well, wherein so we were using AIML technology to personalize the experience of a sports fan, right?
Mm,
In my previous venture. Now, that was a venture that depended on we raising funds, because we initially wanted to gather some momentum in terms of users coming onto the platform,
mm,
and then think about how do we generate revenue from these users, right? So, and we started off with sports on that particular front, but in order to get the user base, we had to spend, right?
mm, mm.
We had to spend on marketing, we had to spend on certain events, campaigns, and all those, for which we needed money, and not just from a tech and product point of view. We also needed a lot of money to generate the initial momentum on the user base as well, right?
Mhm.
Now, when we went to the market to raise funds, what we realized is that, and that's an unfortunate part of it, that it wasn't the idea that all these venture capitalists were after, right?
Okay.
To be fair to them as well, not many of them understood sports as an industry,
Mm,
right? Everybody understood fintech, everybody understood edtech, everybody understood health tech, right? To a certain extent, to a great extent, everybody understood e-commerce. To
yeah.
a certain extent, they were also looking to invest in agri-tech and areas around that.
Yeah.
Nobody understood sports, right?
Okay.
In fact, when we went into the market, so we've gotten comments like, how do you think you will make money in sports? It's a hobby. It's
Mm,
not a business, right? And even during that time, I think the only company that was making rounds in the VC circles was Dreamland,
yeah.
right? And that was also purely into fantasy, right?
Exactly.
So what we were trying to do was, again, as I said, not to be another fantasy player, right? Because there was Dream 11 already in the market. We
Mm,
wanted to differentiate ourselves, and the idea that we had was to personalize this experience. And I still believe in that idea. I still believe that there will be somebody in the market who would come up with a platform that will exactly be the same as what we were trying to do. Maybe we were ahead of our time, but the main problem that we had was that the raising of funds became that much more difficult for us, right?
Okay.
Although and it needed somebody who understood sports as an industry,
Hmm.
right? Now we've learned two things from that, right? Is one is if you are pre-revenue and you want to work on an idea that is, you know, initially user engagement and then move to revenue, right? Then you are dependent on raising funds, right?
Hmm.
And you better be having an idea which the VCs understand,
Right.
right? Or you will. I mean, if you have an idea in the space of edtech, fintech, health tech, and all these areas, you would be having funding done by an investor by meeting just 10 investors, right?
Hmm.
One investor might get convinced. In our case, we had to go meet 100, 150 investors, but even then, we've been able to raise only a pre-series sort of a round, right?
Hmm.
So one thing was I was very clear in terms of when I was trying to pivot is that I wanted to focus on revenue, right?
Okay.
And when you want to focus on revenue first,
Hmm.
and say profitability is that comes in later, but I wanted to focus predominantly on revenue, right? And when you want
Hmm.
to focus on revenue, B2B is a much better bet than
Yeah.
B2C, right?
Right.
And so that's predominantly the reason why we wanted to pivot. And the second reason was we had a team, as I mentioned, who were capable of building solutions using AI and ML technologies, right?
Hmm.
And we wanted to understand where the use cases that we could exploit, and build on those use cases,
Okay.
which is where we started with fintech and then started building solutions for customer onboarding using a lot of these AML technologies.
Hmm.
That's predominantly the reason for transitioning, the two main reasons for transitioning from Dribble, which was my sports venture, to Digitap, right?
Okay.
Now, coming back to your first question, which is in terms
Yeah.
of the challenges that we faced during this particular venture, right? I think I I don't think any entrepreneur would have faced the sort of challenges that we faced because I'll tell you. So we started this in 2019, and when I lay out the timelines, you will know the challenge,
Hmm. Yeah. COVID
right?
would
Sorry.
be
So
one of
when I
them.
yes, so when we started in 2019, we started building the solutions. We had an in principle agreement with one of our clients that we would be taking these solutions provided they are ready and with the same level of accuracies.
Hmm.
We've onboarded that particular client in the starting of 2020, and we started providing these solutions.
Okay.
And by the time we made our solutions, enterprise grade solutions by fine tuning the accuracy levels on that particular client, who was our initial client,
Hmm.
it was March 2020,
Okay.
right? So, um, and the challenge after that,
Yeah.
right? So it's not been an easy sailing after that because I can tell you that even the client that we onboarded, who was giving us revenues in June, Jan, Feb, and March,
Hmm.
they even stopped the business after March 2020. I think the entire industry where it got shut down, and we only saw some amount of revenue coming again only in the months of September or October 2020. Right?
Okay.
So surviving these 6 months was also a painful time.
How did you survive? Did you have the
Uh,
runway?
so we had the runway. So we built in the runway, and we were bootstrapped, right? So
Okay.
I mean, we had to let go of certain growth plans in terms of hiring and all that. And that's a good thing as well that happened to us because we've been circumspect in terms of our hiring and in terms of our cost, right? Since then.
Hmm.
So how much do we have to spend? How much so we became very frugal after that. Right?
Okay.
Even in August 2020 onwards, there was an issue that happened in the credit and especially the fintech industry around Jan 2021, where A lot of these Chinese apps started penetrating the market, and then RBI and some of the law enforcement agencies also started taking things into their own hands, and then started troubling these fintech people, right?
Mm.
That also hampered our particular sector during those months, right?
Okay.
Then we rode that wave as well, and then we thought, okay, the worst is over now, and then we had the second wave in
Mm.
May,
Right.
April, May 2021.
Correct.
Again, fintechs and banks and NBFCs started downgrading their business, right?
Mm.
So the unfortunate part of our business is that we are dependent on their business, right?
Okay.
But if you see the runway that we had from June, July 2021 till right now, I think
Mm.
that's where we've been able to make a lot of business, right? So we have been having close to 20-25% growth month on month
Mm.
since then, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, so one sort of a challenge in 2020, 2021, or the first half of 2021 has been to maintain our costs or regulate our costs so that we could survive,
Mm.
right? The Since the later half of 2021, we had to switch our focus specifically from a survival mode to growth mode, right?
Okay.
That has also been a challenge. But during this time, we are actually facing another challenge, right? I mean, which is basically a dearth of technology talent,
Yeah.
right? I mean, hiring of tech talent has been an issue for us, and we've been trying to address that particular challenge. And it's a challenge for a startup which is bootstrapped, that doesn't have so much money to pay. But then we also work on those technologies, that require people with high skill sets or high payment levels, right? So that is also a challenge for us to address. And the way we've now addressed that particular challenge is we are actually looking at freshers who look at these particular technologies and then say, hey, I want to work in those technologies, because we provide them with an opportunity to work in technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, NLP, and all those, right? So they are willing to work with us and learn. I mean, yeah, we might lose them, say, 2 or 3 years down the line,
Mm.
but we also we are actually giving them a chance to look at what they can learn in these technologies, because they believe they can make a mark in these technologies going forward.
My final question now, in the interest of time, I'm just limiting to one question, one more question.
Sure.
Tell us, what is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you? How would you define the term entrepreneur?
See, an entrepreneur is it's not just a single word definition or something like that for me. See, you need to be realistic in terms of what an entrepreneurship is, right? So if I have to be realistic, an entrepreneur is somebody who has a very strong goal that he wants to achieve, and more importantly, he needs to have the perseverance to achieve that, right?
Okay.
If you don't have perseverance and patience,
Mm.
patience and perseverance are two different things in the way I see it, right? The perseverance is to be at it,
Yeah.
irrespective of what downturns or what upturns that you might face, right?
Mm.
You might have a lot of upturns. You might be able to raise 100 million today, but 6 months down the line, you might be throwing those 100 million away in some of
Mm.
the which still pan out, right?
Yeah.
And it is a perseverance to achieve that goal in the long term. And long term for me is like 10 years down the line. So
Mm.
you need to have that vision is as to
Okay.
what I would want to do 10 years down the line.
Mm.
And you need to have that perseverance to see through those 10 years and not like bubble out in in between, right? So
Okay.
that's what entrepreneurship is.
Awesome. So thanks for your time again, and I'd say it was a great pleasure to host you. My best wishes for Digitap.AI.
Thanks a lot, Priyaranjan. Yeah, it was pleasure talking to you.